Why does life feel so empty lately? Since COVID, even though there were a lot of signs way before that, it feels like every year has been just a repetition of the previous one. It's like the same worries, the same routines, the same stress, same empty distractions. It just gets slightly more depressing with every year. A lot of people feel it, but they can't quite put their finger in it. There's this weird sensation. It's like two opposite feeling. Like in a way you feel like life is passing you by and you have FOMO. You feel like you've been missing out. But at the same time it feels like nothing meaningful is happening and you're just bored to death and you're just waiting for another day to pass you by. It's just honestly, I don't think people are crazy for feeling this way. And it's like in everyday aspects of life, like it's not just life as a whole. Like you feel it, for example, when you're looking for a job, which is, I think in 2026 is one of the most depressing things you can actually do. You start by sending hundreds and hundreds of CV, hoping for so many replies, and then you get maybe 3 disappointing interviews where everyone tells you the same thing, and then you end up maybe landing a job and it's nothing like they sold it to you as. So it's like it almost feels like you have these companies that tells you not to use AI, but at the same time they use AI to judge your CV, and if they find some made up trigger words, some red flags, they just reject you without even giving you the chance of, speaking in person and make a good impression in person. It's almost like, imagine like that you're in the Colosseum, you are a gladiator, which, is fighting for their life to find a job, and then you have the companies that are hiring you, which are actually the posh aristocrats that are watching you from the tribunes, and they're just lazily moving from one candidate to another once one candidate gets killed. So it's ridiculous these days, and it's like it's either there is like fake jobs out there, which is true. There are some ghost jobs that companies put out there, which is just to look healthier, like they're actually hiring, but in reality they're not, because they can't afford to have more resources. And at the same time there is such an overabundance of very niche things, like especially with AI and things like traditional jobs. I don't think they're valued anymore, and this is just depressing for people because they feel like they worked their entire life to refine a skill that it's not valued anymore. Honestly, don't even get me started on places like LinkedIn, which is, I think, the fakest social media platform out there. Like Instagram can't hold a candle to LinkedIn. It's like everyone is posting about these fake promotions where they get some made up title, and actually the job sounds much cooler than what it is in reality. Everyone is kissing asses left and right, praising their company just so they think they can land a promotion or maybe a salary increase or whatever that is. Everyone is honored, thrilled to announce, grateful for this new chapter and whatever. Meanwhile, all I see, and literally go in the subway at 8 a.m. in the morning, you're gonna see everyone sitting there going to their office jobs, depressed, like they're going to a funeral with the same long face. So honestly, it's like we generally can see the disconnect between the fakeness we see on social media and reality. And speaking of social media, I am thoroughly convinced that social media is the greatest villain of the 21st century. It started with Facebook, which, it was created as a way to reconnect with people that you haven't seen in a decade, people that you went to school with, people that lived in your old neighborhood, but very quickly became just a platform built around comparison, a place where people judged each other based on look, based on lifestyle, based on job, based on like whatever, insert anything, and you're gonna find someone judging you based on that on these kind of platforms. And it also quietly became a way to spy into people's life without being noticed, which I don't know, also it becomes a game of comparison, which is a losing game. Social media today isn't really about connection anymore. It's basically just a giant platform, almost like a marketplace, not just for product and services, but also like where you sell fake emotions, fake lifestyle, fake everything. People like carefully choose the part of their lives that they want to display on social media, and that's nothing wrong with being selecting about your privacy, selecting the things that you want to share, selecting the things that you want to keep to yourself. But the problem is that there's people who are chronically online, and they start to think that all they see online is basically equal to the reality of things, and there's nothing more to it. Like, and this is especially true with younger generation, although you'd be surprised by how much time like older people spend with the phone in their hands. It's actually insane. But let's talk about Gen Z, for example. They grew up online. For them, like having a smartphone in their hand and having internet access, having to, I don't know, posting things on social media was absolutely normal. And also basically their brain got rewired by doing things online, where they got the dopamine hit by posting on social media, and they acquainted likes and followers with status, with happiness, with meaning. I think now we're starting to see the side effects of that, especially like Gen Z people that are growing up and now they're starting to go into the job market. They're obviously finding firsthand how different the real world is from the the virtual reality they experienced, and that's why they're aging at an impressive rate, even more than millennials. So when reality finally hits, you feel loneliness, you feel heartbroken, you feel uncertainty about the future, about your finances, and basically your mental health kind of collapses under the weight of all these things. Then we have Gen Alpha, which is, I think, a hit or miss. What I mean by that is that they could either like reverse the trend and bring us to the light, and hopefully I don't think you can completely reverse it, but at least fight the effects of social media a little bit, or it can actually be the final nail on the coffin and we're just doomed from there. Now, another thing that feels completely dated today, and it's still connected to social media, like I don't want to make it the scapegoat of everything, but I think a lot of today's issues are connected to social media, and it's the dating scene today is completely broken. Many people are single, and most likely not by choice. A lot of men, for example, have lost their confidence, they feel depressed, they don't feel masculine, they feel like they're never enough, and they feel like they need to, unless they reach certain things in life, just being themselves is not enough. And then you have on the other side of the spectrum, you have people who are, I cannot say, like the people that are grown up in the manosphere, they listen to people like the Tates of the world, and they feel like their value is based on how much money they earn and how many fancy cars and fancy watches they can buy, and that's all the value that they can offer to the world, and that's enough to to feel successful and to be happy in life, which again is another losing game. But honestly, it's problematic for women as well, because there is a lot of like valuable women with good values that obviously struggle to find men that appreciate them for those values. And then there is, again, at the other end of the spectrum, women who would sell every part of their body just to get money and validation and status. So basically, the fact is that there is a lot of good people out there, but the problem is that the loudest voices are normally the most toxic ones, and they're normally the ones that spread faster, because outrage would always outpace wisdom in that sense. Some influencers, and believe me, like, I hate this word with every fiber of my being, can say the most outrageous things, but since they say it with absolute confidence, and because nobody fact checks them anymore, you know, you got a million of impressionable young people that are falling for that, and they believe that that's the only truth out there, and everyone is an idiot for choosing another path. Not only that, but they believe so much what they hear that they start to defend them, and they feel like everyone else, I don't know, becomes an enemy. That's why in society we're so divided today, because we turned ideas into our own personality, and we tend to think, since we only interact with our bubble, like with people who resonate with us, we believe that people that have different ideas are actually evil. And that kind of feeling can only lead to, first, like, I don't know, offensive comments and, saying very hurtful things. Then it can lead up to even violence. So social media over the past 10-15 years, as I said, has rewired our brains completely, and also has done something which is very scary, which is that has fried our attention span. So our attention span is getting shorter and shorter. But somehow we tend to retain the worst part of every video we watch. Most people can barely sit through a 30 seconds reel before scrolling to the next one, which is usually just a copy paste of the other one. Everyone follows the same trend, everyone does the same type of video. So it's no surprise that people struggle to focus on anything that doesn't immediately shocks them, stimulate them, and entertain them. So we become addicted to constant stimulation and to easy dopamine hits. Everything needs a hook, everything needs aesthetics, everything needs controversy. We value form over substance, and ironically, substance is exactly what's missing from so many people's lives, and that's why we tend to fill it with meaningless activities like doom scrolling. Our brains feel sedated and dulled down, and basically it's more like less active engagement in life and more like passively seeing life passing at us. I think it's the main reason why so many people feel disconnected from their own lives. I don't feel like you had to have main character syndrome and live life like everything revolves around you, but also you need to feel in contact with your emotions, with the way you feel things. So it's like playing a video game in third person. You're technically calling the shots by pressing the buttons on the joypad, but the characters in the game is actually taking actions. So you're almost looking at yourself living life for you, which is an insane way to feel these days. In a strange way, this kind of sense of detachment, it also created a false sense of safety, because it feels like we're not in charge of anything, so at the same time we're also not responsible. So that's why we're so afraid of taking risks, ask people out, approach people strangers, and doing anything meaningful for ourselves, because we're afraid to expose ourselves, to fail, and everyone would look at us and laugh or whatever that is. The problem, although, is not just the content itself that we consume, is the fact that many people like don't even develop their opinions anymore. You can definitely tell that what they're talking about is what they've seen in the real feeds that week, and it changes week by week. They could literally hear something online and they repeat it word for word and then move on. I could write a book with all the things that my mom has said with absolute conviction, but she actually read it on a post on Facebook and I had to tell her that no, it's actually dog shit, so don't believe that. So like original thoughts feels very rare these days. There's not many people reading, not many people writing, creating art, reflecting on, it can be the simplest things of the deepest problem in life, but no one, like just very, very few people actually sit there and think about it. Even movies or, I don't know, like music, like we used to enjoy them because not just necessarily had like a deeper meaning, but because they were actually entertaining and it was a way for us to immerse ourselves into something else. But today it almost feels like background noise in our lives. Like we watch movies while we're folding laundries or while we're doom scrolling on our phone, which is like you turn on a bigger screen just to be distracted by a smaller screen. Like this is the craziest thing to me. And it's, I don't know, like when you try to have like a meaningful conversation with someone, it shows the lack of these activities, because you can only go surface level because everyone wants to look like witty, cool, sarcastic, unbothered, like they don't care about anything, whatever, but it's all a performance. And then when you try to actually get their take on something that it's meaningful to you or it's an important topic of conversation, that's where all facade falls and you understand that they're actually empty vessels. So the fact is that appearing vulnerable, appearing like you're insecure about an idea because maybe you don't know enough about it, or maybe you swing between different points of view, it's something that a lot of people don't wanna show because they want to appear absolute confident in their ideas, in their convictions. Because if they're not, they associate that with being weak. But actually, there's nothing more wise than always like challenging your ideas and finding a new point of view, expand the horizons of a point of view that you're actually having now. So this is the beauty, like you never stop learning. So honestly, I'm always very doubtful when I hear people that are 100% sure about something, because it almost feels like they haven't, I don't know, like considered the fact that there's so many other points of view out there. Now, I don't want to idealize or romanticize too much like the 90s and the early 2000s, because those weren't perfect times as well. But it just like, I don't know, back then discussions felt longer, felt more alive. People would meet up in person just to talk, they would play games together, walk around for hours, even doing absolutely nothing, but it was just the social aspect of spending time together and sharing something together. But I don't know, it feels like today, like every moment has to become content, every interaction needs to generate viewers, followers, money, I don't know, like every hobby like is not done anymore for the joy of doing something that you love, but it's more like it has to become a side hustle. You need to make money online, you need to do this, you need to do that. People used to do things like, just because that's the things that they were interested in. And today it feels very, very rare. Like today everything is, I don't know, almost like monetized, branded, marketed, and even emotions today like feels that way. Like they're only displayed in a certain way to gain sympathy, to get, I don't know, to get attention, to sell a product. Honestly, this leads me to the next point that I want to make, which is the fact that I feel like we're living through the age of apathy. people are in a way overwhelmed with contrasting emotions. They overstimulated, they are emotionally exhausted, but at the same time they feel absolutely nothing. So they feel all the emotions at the same time, but at the same time it's like no emotions at all. We're constantly bombarded by informations, violence, nudity, trends, and I feel like we became desensitized to everything. Like how many people like hear about, I don't know, like horrific murders that have happened in real life while they're folding laundry, or I don't know, it's just maybe there is a sex scene in a movie, and it's like, yeah, I've seen that a million times, so it doesn't even bother you anymore. It feels like, nothing shocks us anymore. Like things before used to move something in us, like force us to do something, or made us understand something. But it feels like today there is constant information passing through our brain, but it's like nothing of value is retained. And I don't know, this kind of like this disconnect from between our brains and the interactions that we have and the information that we get is also reflected in the way that we interact in social circumstances. It's always been clear that in order to belong to a group, you need to sacrifice a little bit of your own identity, because obviously you cannot express fully every single aspect of your personality in social settings, because there are unwritten rules that needs to be followed in order to keep the group together. So the fact is that since people are struggling to be by themselves, and they feel lonely, they feel depressed, they feel without a purpose, they feel so many bad things, they cannot be together with other people. And sometimes, like, even when they're surrounded by people, they feel more alone than if they were by themselves, because the fact is that they haven't fully understood, they haven't fully internalized the kind of person that they are, so they don't know how to behave in relation with other people. So yeah, we can be as connected as we want on social media, we can interact with as many people as we want, but if we are divided, like if we don't feel like we're a whole, like if we don't know who we are as a person, we will never feel at place anywhere else, because we always try to retreat in our virtual world because we feel safe, we don't have to take risks, we don't have to go through deeper and more difficult conversation, like who we are, what kind of person we are, how do we feel about something, and so on. So like being accepted by a group in a way, for some people is a good alternative, because they don't want to answer those questions, so they'd rather just renounce parts of themselves and just go with the flow and be part of the pack. So I think that the biggest point that I want to make today is about purpose. So I talked about spending time by yourself, because one of the most important things that you can do in life is to find a purpose. And it can be literally anything. Like in Japan, they call it ikigai, which is the one thing that you could do for the rest of your life, and you perfect that one skill over and over and over. It can be religion, like your purpose can be God. It can be anything you love. And as long as it's the one thing that drives you, the one thing that you wake up in the morning and you're happy to do, you feel lucky that you have the chance to do it, it just brings you joy to do it, and you would do it for free even if you cannot make any money out of it. So you need something, and we always needed something throughout history of the humankind. I think the main reasons why people started having these kind of meaningful objects in their life is to distract them from the fear of death. So since the moment you have full consciousness of the fact that the time that we have here on Earth is limited, that kind of like I don't know, makes you feel more alive because you only get one shot at it. So you want to make sure that you do everything as more meaningful to you as possible. Some people have kids also because they feel like, they lived on their behalf after they're dead. Some people write books, some people make movies. You can do whatever you want that you like, as long as it has deep meaning to you and it brings you satisfaction. It's not even about, happiness or sadness, because those are more like short-term emotions. It's more about satisfaction with your life and also feeling that, yes, that's the right purpose. You know it when you find it, but you need to look for it. So it is to be something that doesn't just keep you busy, but something that gives you direction in life, gives you purpose. I don't know, you don't care if everyone criticizes you for it. That's the one thing that you want to keep doing. So, I don't know, you wake up, because the alternative, what is that? You wake up, you scroll your phone, you go to work, you finish late, you go back home, and then you repeat. And I don't know, at some point, I don't want to say on your deathbed, but at some point, like when you're old enough, you're going to be like, what the hell is the point in any of this? I'm working, 50 years for someone else to make them rich and successful, but what am I getting out of it? Like, what is the meaning, the purpose that I'm getting out of it? So the solution to all this, I don't think is anti-technology, or pretending that, a world without technology would be perfect, a world without social media would be perfect. That's none of it, because the world wasn't perfect before social media. But I think that what we desperately need at some point is some balance. So yeah, you've heard that, go outside, touch grass. That is true. Like, we need to live less in our digital world and more in our real world. Try to reconnect with ourselves, with our emotions, understand them, process them, talk about it with other people, share points of view, having conversation about topics that we disagree with. So having, real conversations with real friends, having real hobbies, real struggles also. We shouldn't be scared of facing difficult times in life, because those are the times that are going to prove what kind of people we are. And those are the times of growth. You won't grow an inch if your life is easy and you can do everything you want and nothing goes wrong for you. So we need, I don't know, the reason why we feel like life is not lifing anymore is because life itself in a way got worse, but also because we are not experiencing like in the active way that we should. So we become so disconnected from things that even life itself in a way feels unreal, and the virtual world that we see on social media feels like the real thing. So we need to strive for purpose, for connection, for creativity, for challenges. We need to be hopeful for love, for to create a community, to have a meaning in our lives. And that, I think, is the thing that we're missing the most these days.